And that's all right. Shall we begin?
Sounds good.
I'm here with LA based, yes, artist, pop sensation, Lucy and Lemaire. Say hi, Lucy.
Hello. Hi, everyone. How's it going?
I'm all right. And yeah, I've been a fan of yours for quite a while now, and I there are a lot of things I want to ask you, but I would like to start first with two. One, how are you? And two, apple juice or orange juice?
One, I'm doing really well. I'm having a really lovely day in Los Angeles. Um, just released a single this month, which was exciting, and I'm
Mhm.
writing new music. Apple juice or orange juice? That's so hard. Today I had orange juice with my breakfast, so I guess I have to say orange juice.
Mhm. Yeah, I'll go for apple. I'll go for
Yeah?
apple juice. And my answer has pissed off quite a few doctors.
Oh, really? I think apple juice is still healthy. What about like apple cider? Do you like apple cider?
Oh yeah, I do. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would say that this show, aside from giving like a thoughtful or funny discussions about music, it's a very pro Apple show. So
Oh,
so I'm guessing anti Apple people can fuck off.
I see. Hmm.
Yeah. So I'd like to start with the artist name that you got. I'm guessing Lucy is your first name, and Lemaire, as I've learned is French for the sea.
Yes. And I chose that title. I know it's just me really in the project, but I wanted to include members like band musicians that play with me on stage as well.
Hmm.
And I wanted to have more of an inclusive title for my music since I always work with other artists and other creators.
Hmm.
So I added the C to the name as well.
Oh yeah, and I would say the sea is an what do you call it, an inclusive place. And I saw a meme that says so basically the ocean is water, salt, and meat and vegetables. So basically, it's a giant soup.
Oh, that's so true.
Yeah.
I never thought of it that way.
Yeah. So you're in LA right now, yes?
I am, yeah. I
Yeah.
try and show you.
Yeah. All right.
It's it's LA. It doesn't really get cold in the winter, but it was windy today, so that
Mm-hmm.
was exciting. A
Oh,
change.
awesome.
Yeah.
For a moment, it turned into Chicago.
Yeah. Gets a little cold. Is it cold up there in Canada?
It will be. It will be.
It will be.
It's
Yeah.
getting started, and the snow hasn't come in yet. Yeah. So, so personal story. I first discovered you while watching the music video for a collaborative music video of you and YouTube sensation Jesse Page. The
Oh,
the song is called "Not a Phase," and as Jesse has proudly, what do you call it, spoken, it has reached upwards of 1 million streams on the Spotify.
yes. Thank you to everyone who has streamed the song. It's really incredible.
Hmm. And I enjoyed the music video as well with the host of costumes. And of course, the theme itself is about self acceptance, which I find to be a common, what do you call it, thread in much of your music as well as Jesse Page's content. And the first video I've seen of her is her coming out video, which was I think released last year.
Mhm.
And I find the process of doing that really fascinating, and I hope you can relate to this as well because I think the most difficult part about coming out is that you kind of have to do that to yourself first, and I think as much as it is really really difficult to announce yourself to your loved ones, I, the most difficult part is when you look at yourself and you discover this part of yourself and you say I accept you for who you are, and then you just give yourself a big hug like this.
Yes, absolutely. I think you're absolutely correct. You have to come out to yourself first,
Mhm.
and that's For me, that was the hardest part, was letting myself be okay with my sexuality and
Mhm.
acknowledging it, and you know kind of just sitting with it and holding myself and saying it's going to be okay. And that was before I had even told anyone. It's good to get comfortable with it on your own terms before you allow other people to come into that space, because it can be really challenging to see how others react, and it can be hard. It can be wonderful, but it can also be really hard.
Oh yeah, and of course there are those who, well, just will not accept that, but for those who do, well, that would be an incredible feeling knowing that there are people who accept you for who you are. And I would like to discuss your, I guess, your origins or a bit in that. mm, how how was your what was your like upbringing like, sexuality wise? Were you grow mm, were you fortunate enough to grow up in a, what do you call it, accepting household, or were there reservations or revulsions around that topic?
My immediate family is incredibly accepting. However, I grew up in a very conservative town, so
Mhm,
I didn't know anyone who was out. I
mhm,
had one friend I knew who identified as gay, but he wasn't about to tell anyone else in school. Um, and so in the back of my mind, I always assumed, okay, this is just something we don't talk about. And I thought the way that my town operated was the way the world operated. And you just don't talk about being gay, you keep it to yourself. And I was also in a town where a lot of people were religious. And so there was that opposition as well, which was very confusing, growing up in a, you know, I was Christian growing up, and I was very confused when the church began to become more political and involved in hating. That was the first time I noticed like any hate from members of my community was around that topic.
mhm.
So that was hard. But my family is incredible and really supportive, and I think it was a little weird for them at first. It's an adjustment for everyone around you, but it's good to just be patient.
Oh yeah. Just an aside, I really like your hoodie, and it really matches your hair.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, my hoodie is red, and my hair is right now red. Changed a lot, but
Hmm. Just a comment on that. Yes, and I do agree about the whole, like, the religious, what do you call it, aversion to homosexuality or anything that goes different to their rigid ideals, which they make up. Honestly, they make it up as they go along. Like, there are
right.
parts of the Bible that they refuse to adhere to, and there are certain parts that were not in the Bible that they just made all up. The virgin birth wasn't even there in the book.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so it's always incredibly, what do you call it, ironic and hypocritical when you attend these evangelical meetings where they profess love and grace and all that, but there's a lot of, what do you call it, ignorance and hatred in them. And I think you know ignorance and hatred are forces that fuel each other as they have this symbiotic relationship, like the character that Tom Hardy plays in Venom.
yeah.
Yeah, and it is incredibly intoxicating. And so I don't have I don't share the, what do you call it. So I grew up in Hanoi, Vietnam, which is very far from North America. And even though we are not a generally religious country, we also have our, what do you call it, reservations regarding the LGBT plus. And it comes from mostly culture, but also ideological, in that we have really Marxist ideals about masculinity and femininity, and the idea that there are men who are not as masculine as, say, the workers, upset upsets the ideological framework.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you can relate to that at all, but it's something that really, really impacted me. I mean, I'm not very, I'm not um, I'm not gay or anything. I mean, questioning. But one thing I've learned is that the more I get comfortable with me being myself, the more I know who I should trust regarding, my messy internal life and all that stuff, because those are the things that you cherish the most about yourself. And if it gets to the wrong hands, well,
Right. It can be scary, and it can be um, it's tricky because you want to be vulnerable and you want to share something about yourself.
mhm,
You want to share this really, especially when you like first realize what your identity is, or you're feeling more confident about your sexuality.
mhm,
It's something that's so special and unique and so you, that it would be awesome to just share with everyone. But then we do have all those challenges about, between our family and our friends and just society in general.
mhm,
It feels safe to have that guard up sometimes and say,
mhm,
no, that's my business. Nobody else gets to speak on it. Um, but it's also like it's kind of like a shame because you want to be all yourself all the time,
mhm,
not have to think of it so much.
of course. Going back to the theme of the sea, because I've always find the sea to be warm, and there's a certain warmth to your music that I admire and appreciate a lot. And that what I can describe is that there's that feeling that after say 12 hours of rain, and then you see a glimmer of sunshine in the clouds.
Oh, that's
How I
wonderful.
feel about your music. That's
That makes
I
me
feel.
happy. Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That's really kind. Um,
Um, yeah.
that is honestly the reason I make music, is because I want to share those feelings of happiness. I've like a lot of people have had mental health challenges, um, and just trying to cheer yourself up every day is really hard. And if you don't have a supportive community, it's it's almost impossible to just let yourself feel at least normal or okay some days.
Mhm,
And for me, writing music and writing down how I was feeling was, the answer to everything for me for a while. And I still write a song every day just because it cheers me up.
mhm.
Um, but I also just love interacting with people who've heard my music, and I spend a lot of time just talking to people online about their lives, and so it just makes me really happy that
Mhm.
every day.
And so I promise you, this is a show about music, and I think we should talk something about music now. So it's funny. I look up your what do you call it, Instagram profile, and the tagline, what do you call it, your bio. Sorry, the bio says, "I write songs and I cry a lot." So I thought about this image where you basically, after finally compiling like writing a song that you feel like happy with, and you're like, okay, time to spend the rest of the day just sobbing on my bed. Alexa plays Blonde by Frank Ocean.
It's You're not wrong. I do cry a lot. I'm a very sensitive person, and I'm just hiding it all the time and just being quiet.
Mhm,
Um, I'm just kind of, and I live on my own now in LA, so it's like, what, if I'm gonna be sad or sensitive, and I'm
mhm,
just not always sad, the crying, but I am just like very extreme in my emotions. So some
mhm,
things bring me a lot of joy, and some things just make me really deeply sad, and I'm just starting to allow myself to feel both of those extremes and
mhm.
kind of move through it. But that's really what I've been doing this whole weird year
Oh
during
yeah.
lockdown in LA. I'm just
Yeah.
like feeling my feels and
Mhm.
writing songs and letting that be my day.
Oh yeah. I saw a Walmart ad while browsing the YouTube. The ad was supposed to precede one of the compilation of people being hit in the nuts. And it says 2020 has been difficult for us all. And I feel that, man. That is the first time I've ever related to a corporate ad.
Oh yeah.
But
Man.
yeah, but yeah, I mentioned the album Blonde by Frank Ocean, and it is one of my all-time favorite. It's I listened to it during a summer in which I felt nothing but grief and despair. I would probably spare you the circumstances that led to that, but there's a lot of melancholy in Frank Ocean's Blonde, but at the end of the album, like what I feel what I feel about your music, there's a glimmer of sunshine, hope, and warmth. And to connect to the theme of self-acceptance, the entire album is about him accepting himself and after finding himself. And yeah, I am college age. I think me and Jesse Page are born at the same year, 1999. So one of the things that people always say about going into university is to find yourself, and I find that to be kind of a cliche because well, you will find yourself anyhow. You just be, but the bigger question is, what will you do once you found yourself? Like once you found that you kind of have to live with those annoying shortcomings of your abilities and character, and what what do you do once you found that perhaps you're not loved by everyone, and maybe you don't even need to? And I think that's what I've taken from, well, the music of yours, the video content, and recently the music of Jesse Page and Frank Ocean's Blonde, especially the song White Ferrari, and the outro of that song just basically just broke me.
They're incredible. They're incredible.
Hmm.
I think that's a really beautiful thing that you can see throughout um, different artists and their songs is that it's all about self-acceptance, like in the end, because not everyone is gonna like you. That's just how life is. There's a song by this artist Casey Musgraves called "Cup
Oh
of
yeah.
Tea." I don't know
Hmm.
if you know her, but you might like it. It's basically just about how we're all so different that there's no way that everybody's gonna like you. And if everybody does like you, you're probably not being yourself. You're probably pleasing each person you meet and stepping out of your own way and your own comfort zone to help other people feel comfortable. And that's not living your authentic life. You got to just be yourself, and that's where you're going to find the most happiness.
Oh yeah.
Even though it's a struggle to realize, okay, well, these people might not like this part about me, but
Hmm.
that's me, and that's just who I am.
Oh yeah. I've yeah, I think I've tried that route actually. I must confess, of rather than trying to accept who I am, I try in a very feudal manner to be someone else. And again, we are on the topic of the LGBT plus here. You probably know that novel by Oscar Wilde called The Picture of Dorian Gray. And
I haven't read it yet though.
so it's a really good one, and it's about a man who strives for immortality by having his portrait painted. So basically, he himself would stay young, but then because he's such a awful person, the portrait would just be gradually corrupted.
I see. Okay.
And and then when he at the end of the novel, when he finally discovered the painting, like well, he was just in shock, and the novel ends with him just being dead. But then his face is still like really young and really handsome. That was
That's
really good. So, so I have this experience where I spend all of this effort trying to please people, and at the end of the day, I had that Dorian Gray experience where I look in when I look at myself in the mirror and I thought, who are you and who are you trying to be? And after a while, I just thought that it's not worth it. So just be myself and you'll find something nice in the process.
absolutely. And it's not as hard as you think. For some reason, most people think it's going to be so hard and painful just to be
Mhm.
yourself. And really, once you start doing it, every day, just
Mhm.
like fully be yourself. Like your actions are matching your thoughts, and like your words are all very honest. You're not saying something just to say something or to please someone else. It's really quite easy, and life just kind of gets lighter.
Mhm. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Um, it's awesome because this is what I really enjoy about talking to people who are in the arts, who are creative. I started this pet project as part of in between bouts of anxiety and depression in the quarantine era, and I just thought, hey, what if I can create a program on which I can talk to people who I I believe feel the same ways I do or similar ways that I do, and I must say I am not disappointed.
That's wonderful. So you started this year?
Um, I have a radio show version. I've had it for 2 years, but then um, and then after a while, because I have a radio show, people would come and ask me to play some of their music, which I do, and if I think their music is good, I would like to chat with them. And
Awesome.
I the I have a podcast version which recently started this year. Yes, because I like to have it safe,
Yeah,
and it's one of the things that I'm really proud of.
absolutely. I think that's wonderful, and it's
Mhm.
it's so cool to see you just following your passion, and I
Mhm.
can see you really love music, and you can really feel music in a special way. So it's really cool that you're having these conversations and sharing them.
Mhm. Um, so there's a really intriguing question in which I want to ask, and it has nothing to do with neither apple or orange juice. I promise.
Okay.
Um, what does the word pride mean to you? Because as we discussed, it means really, it has really different connotations to say the LGBT plus community and the religious community. Because in the latter one, pride is a sin, and in the former, pride is an expression of self acceptance and perhaps a sense of joy about being who you are. So I guess again, that's my question. What does pride mean to you?
Pride for me is being fulfilled without reaching for like exterior acceptance, like really owning up to all your awesomeness and
Mm-hmm.
being proud of yourself and not having someone else need to be proud of you. Like the whole pride celebration. And I think the reason that word became so popular within the queer community is, it's we go through so much before we ever even come out,
Mm-hmm.
that it's such a journey, and it takes a lot, just as we were saying earlier, to be comfortable with yourself and accept yourself on those terms, when the whole world it feels like the rest of the world at least is saying no, you're too different, you can't do that, that's not normal.
Not a
um,
phase. It's
Not a
just a phase.
phase.
Sorry,
Not a phase.
not a
um,
phase. Stream it on Spotify and wherever you can find your music, even Pandora.
yeah, but it really is, you have to stand up and sometimes say, I'm not in a phase, this is really how I feel, and for me this
Mm-hmm.
feels permanent, and maybe it won't be. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I do like to clarify when I talk about that song, because I loved writing it, but I like to make sure everyone knows you can also be in a phase. Sexuality can change over time. So maybe you do identify as bisexual now, but later maybe you identify as lesbian or gay or straight, and that's okay too. But it is just a kind of a thing that comes up when you come out as bisexual, is that it's a phase.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I do know that there are people whose sense of self is defined by the fact that their self is so fluid and it's so dynamic and it changes all the time. And I find them to be the most interesting people to talk to because they are kind of the only people I can talk to.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me at least, pride is when I feel like I can be in the present moment. And as I've said before we started the conversation, I meditated before I talked to you, to calm myself and to remind myself that there's there's now, and now is all that you've got. And I wonder, could I make a musical recommendation to you?
Yes, please.
There's an artist that I believe you might like. I know that I do like because he's such an open and honest soul. His name is Mount Erie, and he recently has a project under a previous what do you call it, an album under his previous project called Microphones in 2020, in which it's a 45-minute song. It's a 45-minute song where he goes through all the autobiographical details that led to him creating and maintaining the microphones, as well as what happened afterwards, and including this one incident where he lost his wife to cancer. But at the end of the 45-minute song, and he said, his name is Phil Elverum. He says, every song I've ever sung is about the same thing, standing on the ground, looking around, basically. If there have to be words, they could just be now only, and there's no end. And the first time I ever listened to it, when mm, that song ends, and I've cried a lot during listening to Mount Erie song, and that was when I just fell silent, and I couldn't bear myself to speak for hours because, well, yes.
Yeah, that sounds really powerful.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'd love to hear that.
And yeah, it reminds me that sometimes certain powerful things can be extraordinarily subtle, and and sometimes you don't really recognize it at the moment, but afterwards it it comes at you in waves, and it can be a tsunami.
Hmm. Absolutely. I think sometimes like the smallest, just a couple words in a song like that, like a lyric, or just the smallest, like an act of kindness in your
Hmm.
day, something very small, just can create such a huge shift, such an energy flip in the day
Hmm.
if we're paying attention. And that's the hard thing is everyone gets so busy and so caught up that sometimes we forget to pay attention to everything around us and we're just not present.
Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, and I wonder, have you had an experience where, as experience with at least a musical piece where you don't think that you are the same person as you were before you started listening to it, like you came out an entirely different person? Have you had that?
Definitely. I think when I really get into music and just like soak it up and I'm just listening to music all day, like an album that I'll play over and over. It's usually when I'm going through something like a transition period in my life, whether it's a breakup or a move or
Mhm.
traveling somewhere. I think there's music that really attaches itself to you and your experiences.
Oh yeah.
And that's why it's so powerful, is because,
Hmm.
I mean, think of your favorite album from when you were 12 or 13, and when you listen to it now, all these feelings come up and all this nostalgia comes up. And I think we're constantly changing as humans, we're constantly developing and getting to know ourselves, going through all these different things. And when we listen to music, it just kind of morphs with us.
Hmm.
We all hear it differently.
I do believe that there is a sense of dynamism in music, and that a song or a poetry verse is not static, and as you grow and as you change, the piece of music seems to be changing with you. And yes, that's how I felt about, again, Frank Ocean's Blonde too, an album that I think I've promised to myself the first time I listened to it to just listen through it once, at least once every year, or preferably every month even. Hmm.
Like a ritual.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Um, Yeah, I wonder what are your favorite albums? What are your favorite albums? The ones that, if they were gone from the world, you would be incredibly devastated, and you would sulk and ask Alexa to play something that is not Bond by Frank Ocean.
Well, that's, I mean, that's an amazing album. I think I really, after hearing you speak about it, I really need to sit down and listen to that album again.
Hmm.
Um, oh man, there's so trying to think. I was very obsessed with Florence and the Machine when she first
Hmm.
came on the scene, and her album Lungs. It was really powerful for me because her voice was so raw,
Hmm.
so different when it was next to all these other pop singers with all their auto tune and
Oh yeah.
yeah. And as a songwriter, I'm constantly being kind of told, hey, you need to write songs like this song in the top 40, and this Ariana Grande song, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, that's the thing. And when I hear Florence's voice, I just it's so easy to just be like, F that. Like, I can do whatever I want as long as it's from the heart, because she just sings and there's no wall. Like, she just sings and her voice goes like all the way around the world because it's just so free and so honest. And it's not stuck in a little 3-minute radio airplay box.
Yeah.
And so I just listen to that over and over.
Yeah, I find it quite surprising though that there are these like 4 or 5 Swedish guys, and they have found the perfect formula to make like endless numbers of pop songs that will definitely crack the top 40 at some point. And I find it incredibly staggering.
It's so scary how they can look at the human brain and be like, this song will be stuck in this person's head for this long, and this is
Hmm.
what I want you to write. And I get that a lot. Like, people say, oh, you got to write a hit. And
Hmm.
I've written plenty of hits. It's all about the artist who sings it. It's about the meaning behind it. And of
Hmm.
course, like, there's a huge music industry behind it as well. But I think the albums that really, they might not make it to number one or anything like that, but the albums that music listeners are obsessed with are the ones that are just written from the heart and just written about that singer's experience.
Yeah, and it's I think if you are a creative person and you've managed to make a living out of it, there's always that part where you kind of have to tolerate at least the industry or the commerce part of it. So I wonder what do you feel about it? Like currently, how do you feel about it?
About the music industry,
Yeah,
like the business.
of course, yeah.
Oh, it's fine. It's uh, um, like I said, I write at least one song a week, like finish one song a week, and that's obviously not how quickly I release music because there's so many other hoops and ladders and things that come along with the songwriting journey, and it's tricky because I'm an independent artist. I'm
Mhm.
literally like, it's me and that's it, and I love collaborating with other artists, but that's my extent of diving into the music industry so far. I don't work with a big management or a label, anything like that at the moment, so I do have a lot of freedom.
Oh,
But the second I want to do something bigger, like play a festival or do a really big tour, something like that, then you have to start
oh
involving other
yes.
people. And
Mhm.
those other people want to hear like hit songs. They want you to fit like, okay, well, do you have this many followers, and do you have
Mhm.
these type of songs lined up, and do you have all the music videos done and all the photos, and
Mhm.
it's just
I
it's a lot.
So, speaking about memes, there's that show 30 Rock where Steve Buscemi guest stars in, and there's this meme where he dressed up in like a teenager and he says, "How do you do, fellow kids?" And I feel like that's how the big shot industry people think of us. Like, but I I listened to the song and the music video for your latest single before starting this convo, and to bring up the theme of self acceptance and pride. I think another thing that gets me to be proud of myself is that the feeling of And again, this can be, I think this can only be achieved when you are in the present moment, is that you look back and you see how much you've improved, how you have not, made the same mistakes as you've made when you were 13 and listening to Linkin Park's In the End over and over again. And yeah,
I mean, it's a great song.
mhm, it's an awesome piece of music.
Yeah,
And
I think it's wonderful. Self-reflection is so key to self-acceptance. Like in the present moment, to be happy where you are, you gotta just like accept everything that's already happened and stop worrying about the future.
so we are almost out of time now, as my therapist say to me, who I have to pay 200 per session. Um,
Oh Lord, that's so much.
I know, but it's Canadian though. So
Okay.
um, I would like to give you the honors of, wrapping things up. So, Lucy and Lamera, what do you have to say to the audience of my show, including my mom?
Hi mom. One. Hi mom. How's it going? I mean, I would just say that thank you everyone for listening to this phenomenal show, podcast, and
Oh,
all
thank
these
you.
things. Please follow and listen to our wonderful host. And I'm very excited to continue listening to your show and see other guests you bring on and hear more of your thoughts. And I think your unique look into music from such like a really emotional place is really beautiful and wonderful. And I think that'll really carry you through as you continue to grow this program. And I
Uh,
look forward to seeing what you do.
thank you. I was half expecting that you make a plea for world peace or something, but instead you sort of propped up my show, which is a very heartwarming gesture, and it made me feel the same way that I listened to your song. The whole thing with the sunshine and the clouds and all that. So, Lucy and Lemaire, I appreciate you being on this show, and you are an awesome and admirable person. And I guess you keep doing you.
You too. Thank you so much for having me. It was really wonderful to chat with you.